But I sat there not knowing whatever the heck the teacher was saying. And then I look to my left and I just see the sweetest girl with the sweetest brown eyes. And she just like, not a word. She just grabs my hand and she's just like, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be okay, you know? And so what I learned from there was like being kind and showing love. It doesn't matter if you speak English, Spanish, whatever other language. That's how you can talk to people and let them know you're okay.
Welcome to Guys That Listen. I'm Peter, and today we got special guest Sammy on the pod.
Hi, I'm Sammy. I'm a Mexicana who came to the U.S. and have just been enjoying life ever since. I'm a musician. I'm a artist. I live hip hop. I'm the only girl out of 3 boys.
Oh, wow.
And I'm the youngest. So life has been so much fun. I'm also a caregiver, you know, a community organizer.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you come here?
Whoa. Honestly, I know the year. I think it was 2003.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. I mean, now it would be 21 years.
Yeah.
If my math
21.
serves me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So did you come here? You came here with 3 older brothers.
Yes.
Right? Did the whole dynamic change? Because, I mean, you were a lot younger back then.
Yeah.
Like coming to the States, I'm sure that's such a big change. It's not just like moving states, but you're moving countries.
It was a huge change. Like, I can honestly remember looking at, this is how I'll explain it for you to kind of see it. So, you know, you're little, you're in school, you're looking at the whiteboard, right? But in this case, when I was in Mexico, it was a chalkboard and it said 2003. I believe it said 2003. And then fast forward, I'm looking at a whiteboard and this is 2003, but it's like in the US. I don't know how to explain it, but whenever I think of it that way, I'm like, wow, it just changed like that. And it was so different.
Did you have any issues like since you moved? Was it drastic of a change where it was hard for you to get used to, or was right away you felt like you fit in?
It definitely was a change. I mean, I didn't know any English, you know, except for when my mom taught us to just kind of like get by, you know. So the very first day, I'll tell you about my first day in school.
Let's get into it.
So, and this is where I also learned a really important lesson. So it's my first day of school. I had already spent the whole summer. I think it was the summer. I don't remember. But I spent some time before school started. And there I am. My mom's dropping me off. I'm being brave. I see where I'm supposed to be, right? I'm saying bye to my mom. Like, she gives me a hug. She tells me like, "Si puedes, está bien." I'm like, yeah, of course, because I've always been that way. I've always been very like, I can do this. I got this. Let's go. You know. Yeah. And so I enter, and I see like kids I've never seen before. And I sit where I think I was supposed to be sitting. We didn't have, you know, assigned seating. It was the first day. So I sit down. All the kids are sitting. And I'm just like, my heart is racing. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking around. And then all of a sudden, I just see kids standing up and then go into the middle. Because the seats were kind of like this. Like kind of like a rectangle, right? Or a square, whatever. And then you get the little circle in the middle. So I was like, okay, I'm just following because I don't know English, you know? So I'm just following and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the whiteboard, like I mentioned. And then all of a sudden, the teacher just starts going, womp, 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 like Charlie Brown. Yeah. And I was just like, I start freaking out and I just start crying. Like I had held it on forever and then it hit me. Like I'm sitting there and I'm like tears in my eyes and I'm sorry, like, you know, when you think back at that, like part of that still hurts or you still feel for that little girl. But I sat there not knowing whatever the heck the teacher was saying, and then I look to my left and I just see the sweetest girl with the sweetest brown eyes, and she just like not a word, she just grabs my hand and she's just like, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be okay, you know. And so what I learned from there was like being kind and showing love. It doesn't matter if you speak English, Spanish, whatever other language. That's how you can talk to people and let them know you're okay. Yeah.
And then you guys became besties.
Yeah, no, so she was super sweet. I feel bad that I don't remember her name, but I just remember like this little güerita with the chocolate brown hair and the sweetest brown eyes. And she just looked at me and she just grabbed my hand. And she's just like, she didn't say anything. And so then I'm like, I think I was like, whoever raised her, they knew what they were doing, you know? So yeah, I'll never forget that day. It was my very first day in school in the U.S.
Yeah, I think as kids we remember a lot of those like very impactful moments. Where if we look at it as an adult, it's like, oh, that's so interesting that back then as a kid that came so naturally to children. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have a story quite like that. I do have a story kind of similar. I think I was in the 4th or 5th grade, and it was like the school dance, which I didn't even know there was like a school dance. I wasn't very involved in school.
Yeah.
But then the school dance was happening and everyone in my class was there and they were dancing. And then one of my friends, I still remember her name actually. Her name's Edith. And she was like, "Oh, would you like to go dance?" And this is like 5th graders. You know, I
That's so
still
sweet.
remember this. Yeah.
So sweet.
And we danced. I'm sure we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Yeah, exactly. Maybe 2-step. But yeah, I still remember it till this day. You know, I just remember how nice she was. And I mean, we were friends already, but she was like the only one who saw me standing outside. And she was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, would you like to come in? Just like dance." I was like, "Oh, yeah."
That's so sweet. You said her name was Edith?
Yeah.
See, her kindness, you remembered it for
I do.
Yeah.
She, you know, there's a couple of like archetypes that stand out when I was a child.
Yeah.
It was like the friendly, nice girl who was like nice to everyone who's also there for me too, you know, even though I felt like an outcast, you know, because I think I was one out of like 4 Asian kids out of like 30 or 40 students, you know.
Yeah.
And there's obviously the bully archetype, which I don't know if you had that, but I definitely had a couple of those. There's like the cool guy archetype. There's the cool girl archetype. You know, like all these characters that fit into like that position where I'm like, oh, now that I look back at it, I did have those things like in school, you know, and I was like the class clown, and that was like the way I kind of fit in.
No, I definitely, looking back at it, being from a different country, like, I remember my mom being worried that we were going to get bullied or, you know, make fun of our accent and da 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 da. But I'm like, ain't nobody going to bully me. I have 3 older brothers.
Yeah, that's also
You know?
true. That's also true.
You know, but I do remember instances where there was this one. But also, I guess I will say is like, I won't let somebody bully me, but I am also the type of person to like kind of give somebody like, oh, maybe they're just having a bad day, or like just really patient, you know?
Yeah.
So what I think might be like, oh, they're just having a bad day, like shrug it off. Other people are like, no, like that
get
was not
into it.
okay. That was not okay. Again, since we're talking about, you know, childhood and school, early years, I remember that this one girl, my mom had just dropped me off, you know, so she was still there watching us get in line. At this point, I knew English a lot better, you know. My mom knew more English than me because when she lived in Mexico, they actually, you know, are teaching her English. So she knew a little bit better than me, you know. So I forgot what this girl did exactly. I think she pushed me out of the line. And my mom, she saw that and she was like, oh, heck no. You know, again, I'm the more like calm, patient, you know, it takes a lot. And my mom is too, but my mom's like, that's her baby. Like, so
That's the
she's,
limit right
that's
there.
the limit.
She
So
draws
she
the
went,
line.
I don't remember if it was that time that she went up to that girl or after the fact, like later on. But I remember my mom tells me a story that she's like, yeah, I went up to her and I was like, did you just push my daughter? And then the teacher came up and was like, what, like, what's going on? Like, and then my mom was just trying to explain to her, like, I just saw her push my daughter. Oh, yes. And then the teacher said, well, what did your daughter do?
Oh.
And my mom was like, she didn't do anything. But I remember that archetype. Like, I think in those moments, that girl was trying to bully me or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. You realized that when you were that young, that maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe
Yeah.
something happened at home. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane self-awareness for a child. Because I didn't start thinking that until like a month ago. You know,
Relate.
yeah, exactly. Late bloomer for sure. Like now I look at things like how you did when you were a kid. When things happen now, I'm like, oh, maybe they had a bad day or maybe they had a bad life, who knows?
Yeah.
And I just kind of like look past it and I'm like, oh, well, what can I do? Unless they're involved in my life, right? Like if they're a close friend or something,
Yeah.
then I'll dig into it, which is something I'm going through as of late. And it's very new to me because as a guy, or at least like guys my age, we don't really tell each other our problems, nor do we dig when there is a problem, even if it's glaring, right? Like I look at some friends, I'm like, like what, you're acting kind of strange today. Why so aggressive? And I'll just be like, yo, let's just go get a beer, take a shot, and we'll be chilling.
Move past it.
Yeah, move past it. But really, you don't. That's not moving past anything. You're just sedating
numbing
it.
it.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm learning to be like, yo, you all right? Like, you good? And like really ask. Like it's different when you say like, oh, you good? Versus like, oh, you good? Like, I know it's similar, but it's I'm reminded of a moment where I think it was just 2 weeks ago, we went out for a friend's birthday. We were at a Korean barbecue. It was like 30 heads. And there was a group of us who were drinking, the guy side. And our friend whose birthday we were there for, he came by. And he wanted to take a shot with us. And I said to him, like, oh, how's everything, Randy? He was like, I'm good. And I was like, oh, you good? Like, everything's all right? And then one of my buddies from across the table, he says, damn, Pete, asking all the deep questions. And I'm like, wow, that's so crazy because to me that's still kind of surface level, but as guys we're so not used to it that in itself is a deep question.
Right. Yeah. That is, well, I'm glad that I know you said you were joking where it's like a little late, but no, it's like I feel as though everybody has a different journey, everybody goes through different things, and I just think it's awesome that you're experiencing that. Like, you want to know more. I don't know how old you are.
Old enough.
But like, I just think everybody should be able to go deep and talk deeply with their friends. Obviously not like everybody you meet, even though like, I mean, I've had some of the best conversations with people I don't even know. I'll probably never see again, like in the sauna or da-da-da. It's like older people who really want to know, like, what's up? Like, how's life? All that. So I think it's cool that you're asking your friends, and maybe by you doing that, they might open up and see that it is important to know how you're doing.
Oh, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I think my thinking is that we haven't done this in 20, 30 years of friendship, and I'm just starting this, which means that it is a difficult change. It's not something it's like, oh, let's all of a sudden get past surface level and talk about deep shit all the fucking time. Like, not everyone's gonna agree to it, right? We're just not programmed that way. We've been one way for a long time. But just like how you were saying, I have like really good and deep, meaningful conversations with strangers all the time. And I think also, like, why am I having such a deep, meaningful conversation with a stranger and I can't do that with my own friends? And that's where the disconnect is, right? Where I'm like, okay, I don't think that's not possible. I just got to put some effort into it, right? We kind of have to unravel some of the habits that we've had through the years. Like all of the self-medicating, all of the sweeping things under the rug,
Unlearning.
Yes, unlearning.
Yeah, learning is very interesting. But I guess the reason I feel that I'm this way, or have always thought about people and how they're feeling, I think it definitely had to do with the fact that how I grew up, and having that change from Mexico to the US. Like, it's a lot on a kid, and I never blame my parents or my mom or anybody for that choice. Like, that was a choice I was made, and I am who I am today. you know, like, but I think that having to go through that and having to grow up really quickly, and being aware of what's going on is what got me to think about those things and try to see if people are doing okay. Because you look at somebody, you never know what they're going through. You know, somebody could look at me and they didn't know that this is my first year in the US, you know, and that little girl, she didn't know, but she just tried to show me kindness. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that that's why I am the way that I am.
I
and have
love
been.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. And you know, you're a very community based person. You do a lot of different things for you know, the community, for lack of a better word. You know, like to me, I feel like you've always looked out for people, even your demeanor and when you talk, you know, when we talk and stuff like that, I
Yeah.
could tell it's very warm, very welcoming. It's almost like a little bit of that girl who like held your hand,
Oh my
stuck with
gosh.
you know? Yeah, because okay, the reason why I bring that up too is
Yeah.
you were raised with 3 older brothers.
Yeah.
You know, I have a little sister. She was raised with 2 older brothers. She's definitely way more masculine due to us, you know, and she's definitely not as like warm as like other girls are. She's a little bit more cutthroat in the way she answers to people. Yeah, and I see how that has affected her. You know, like when I was younger, I never thought about it like that. I was like, we're just being brothers, older brothers, right? We're just being shitheads, whatever's. But in your case, like I would have never guessed you had 3 older brothers.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. No, I mean, I do have 3 older brothers. I actually do consider myself pretty masculine. I've who you see today is I guess like feminine. I got the bow in my hair, the long hair. But I've had to learn to be more into my feminine side. And I think that started in maybe when I turned 23 and up, you know. I've learned, and the girlfriends that I have now, they have helped me a lot when it comes to just seeing who they are and their fashion sense and being a little bit more feminine. Because growing up with 3 brothers, I was definitely a tomboy.
I was gonna say, see, but I didn't see that
Definitely.
now because
Yeah.
the youth today is different.
Yes, it's something that I can be cutthroat in some parts of my life, and sometimes my brothers are like, "You're too nice. Like you need to stop giving a damn and stop being nice." Like people take advantage of that, and that is something that I have had to deal with with it, you know, throughout my life, being a little too nice to people and kind of just like knowing when the boundary is, or people don't understand if I'm being nice or if I don't know how to explain it, but I can be cutthroat.
So what situations has happened where your niceness has been taken advantage of?
People think I'm being flirty with them, or they think I'm into them when I'm really just being nice and giving them a compliment, or like really want to know about their day, or you know, just like really trying to be a friend. Or even if it's a stranger, like, you know, I'll talk to them and see them, and sometimes maybe they'll take it the wrong way and be like, oh hey, you know. And other aspects, I think that I like to help people out a lot, and oftentimes you can get taken advantage of that way, like maybe just kind of being on call for somebody that needs help. So I've had to learn to be like, no, I gotta make time for myself, and I can't always
Be helping.
be helpful. I can't always do that for that person. I can't always, you know, make this event or do this, that, da da da. I enjoy it and I love it, but I've definitely had to learn to just like, okay, and not to say that these people know that they're taking advantage. It's just like they're like, oh, she wants to help, she's down, you know.
Yeah, I definitely know where you're coming from, like in both situations actually.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about this. You said that one of the first things is if you're too nice, they might deem it as flirty, right? I've definitely been in those situations, and the way I see it now, from my experience at least, right? I'm like, I'm not going to dim my light to make you understand me a little bit better. You know, if anything, if you misunderstand me, that's kind of more on you than it is on me. I'm going to still be the nice person that I am.
Yeah.
And, you know, this applies to a lot of situations in general. You know, I found myself in situations where I grew up and I was misjudged, right? And I would try to redeem myself even though I didn't do anything wrong. So an example I thought of recently, I talked to my friend about this, was when I was younger, I was in, at least in Asian culture, we strive to like pay for each other all the time. Like friends, like if you go out, we're gonna pay for your food, we're gonna pay for your drinks. We're actually gonna fight against each other to get the bill. It's pretty crazy, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good, but it's also like it gets violent sometimes. Yeah. So there's this streak where I was unemployed for a long time, probably for like 2 or 3 months or something like that. And when I went out, I could not pay for people. And I know some friends at the time, no longer my friends, that thought I was just taking advantage of them and that I was being cheap or whatever, and I overheard and I was thinking, oh, wow, like that's crazy that you thought that, but you didn't think positively of all the things that I did before when I was trying to pay and where I did pay. And I'm now misjudged, but like because I was younger, I thought, okay, well, let me kind of compensate. So I would try to pay more, try to be extra nice to prove to them, like, no, I'm not what you think. I'm not cheap. I'm not taking advantage of you. But, in my adult life now, I think back, I'm like, I didn't need to prove shit.
Right.
I know what I did. I didn't really have to do that. And then on the flip side, I had a friend, and this is burned into my head, right? And this is why I consider him one of my best friends and one of the nicest things he's ever done, because he made me realize something. I remember we were going out for some drinks at D&B's. And D&B's is very cheap, right?
What's D&B's?
Dave & Buster's.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. So we're out. We're there for happy hour, and at this time I'm unemployed. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go hang out. I want my friends want to be in my presence. I'll hang out. I'm not gonna buy anything because it's gonna cost money, and right now I'm unemployed. Mm-hmm. And my buddy Rob, he's like, yo, Pete, let's go to the bar. I'll buy you a drink. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Rob, I can't afford that. He's like, yeah, I know. I'll buy it for you. I was like, no, I'm good, dude. Like, I don't want you to buy me anything. Mm. And I think now looking back at it, a little bit was my ego. As a man, I'm like, I should be able to provide for myself. Mm. And my buddy Rob looks at me dead in the eye. And he says, shut the fuck up. I'm paying for your fucking drink because I want you to have a drink. Because I think it's more fun for me if we could drink together. This is not just for you. Stop thinking about yourself. And I was like, whoa, I had never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That my friends, because at that time we were just fighting for the bill all the time. Mm-hmm. That they did because they actually want me to have a good time and they care, and now I became more gracious when it comes to people offering me things. I'm like, okay, yeah, I could take a drink or I could take a meal or whatever. It's like, that's okay. Yeah. Whereas when I was younger, I felt like it was an attack to my ego, looking back in hindsight.
Wow. That's so, interesting that you said that, like that your friend actually like told you. I had a conversation with, I don't remember who, right? We talked to a lot of people. Yeah. Oh, I think it was a stranger. I think a stranger wanted to buy me something, a coffee or something, and I was like, oh no, like you don't have to do that. Like it's okay. Like. They're like, hun, no, I want to do this for you. And I was like, no, like, it's okay. It's just like, honey, don't block somebody's blessings. And I was like, huh. I thought about that. She was like, yeah, like, I want to give you this blessing. And it's not just for me. I think it was like, she was talking about blessing somebody that day. That's what she wanted to do. So I think it's in the same way that you mentioned your friend was like, yo, it's not just for you, it's for me. Like, it's fun. I want to do this for you. This is, I would say, maybe a blessing, hanging out with your friend and having a good time. So yeah, I resonate with that. Yeah, and 100%. I've learned that. And I've said that to other people because I do that, when I can. Like, I want to buy my friend something or a stranger, get them food or a coffee. And I've said that now. Like, don't worry. Like, yeah, I want to do this for you.
No, that's a great way to think about it, because I think in general, when people are being selfless, sometimes it's also being selfish, but in the best way possible.
Yeah, in the good way.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like giving you something, but it makes me feel good about doing that. I remember one time, this is pre-YouTube, all these guys give me out money and shit like that. Right. I remember I bought someone a coffee but I like paid for it in advance. I was like, here's $10. The next person who comes, like, they could get the coffee for free. And I just sat down at the table, just working, but I was watching, you know, I wasn't recording it. It wasn't for YouTube, it wasn't for like a prank or anything like that.
It was just for
but the next person who came up, they, you know, got their coffee and they're like, what do you mean my bill's paid for? And I'm like, oh yeah, someone decided they want to pay for your drinks. And they're like, oh my God, thank you. Like they were looking around to see if they could find the person.
They're like, Ashton, where are you?
Yeah, I was just like looking down the screen, acting like I didn't see anything. But, you know, now that I think about what I was doing at the time, I did feel really good about myself.
Yeah.
You know, it was like selfless, but, you know, selfish in a way, in the best way possible.
Yeah. I think this is the only good time to be selfish. I'm just kidding. I'm sure there's other times that are important when you got to take care of yourself. You know, you have to be selfish in those senses sometimes.
Of course,
but yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, I think those are lessons that you learn over time.
I want to ask you about growing up with 3 brothers.
Okay.
And, you know, you being the youngest.
Yes.
Youngest girl, too.
Only girl.
Yeah, only girl.
Yes.
I feel like you've probably got some protection on your side.
Oh, 100%. I do. So growing up with 3 older brothers was awesome. Wasn't girly at all. It was wrestling, lucha libre, you name it, getting freaking scruffed up knees and bruises everywhere. But not because they, you know, would hit me or anything. Like, no, they would always protect me. It was always the little sister that would protect me, but we would mess around. Like, we would have so much fun. And that definitely continued, you know, growing up. What can I say about my brothers? The oldest ones, the first in the family, they're twins. So that's freaking cool to have twin brothers who are identical. They're identical twin brothers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then you have my other brother. He's the middle child. He's closer in age with me. I think we're like a year and some change apart. And so I was like very close to him growing up. There's moments where we kind of like, I don't know if he hated my guts, but it definitely
stole the limelight.
I think so. I'm sorry, my brother. I'm sorry, brother. He's probably gonna watch this being like, girl, shut up. No, but yeah, we grew up super close. I was always there. I think I was a little there too much. To the point where I wanted to do everything that they were doing. They had a Super Nintendo. Okay. They never, ever let me live this down. So they had a Super Nintendo. They were so excited about it. They were playing their games, and I always wanted to play. And they would let me play sometimes, but of course, I freaking sucked at it. You know, I'm like little sister. Like, they want to have fun, and I'm just being like, losing. And they wouldn't let me play. I was like, no, I want to play. They're like, no, like later, you know, go watch your show. And this was in Mexico. I went to the kitchen. I don't know if it was scissors or a knife. And I said, I don't know if I said anything, but in my head, if I can't play, nobody else can play. And I cut their cord. Oh my gosh. Like, I felt so bad. You felt
bad as soon as you did it, or you felt bad after they yelled at you?
No. I felt so bad. I did it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, how could I do this? You know? And they were so sad. They were upset. I don't think they yelled at me, or maybe I blocked it out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't ever really remember my brothers yelling at me. Like, I have always felt loved and protected, even in those moments. I think they told, like, my mom, like, she did this, like, what the heck? And I'm pretty sure I got in trouble for it, but they never let me live it down. To this day, they roast me.
Oh, really?
That's another thing. Growing up with 3 older brothers, you are gonna get roasted 100%. So that's why I think that it helped me with my character. If somebody says something about me, or like tries to bully me, or tries to be mean to me, I'm just like, bro, like, I have 3 older brothers. Like,
yeah, I got thick skin.
Yeah, I got thick skin, you know? So yeah, that's just a little bit of growing up with older brothers in a nutshell.
Okay, they seem super nice.
Oh, super nice.
Were they also nice to people that you were dating or talking to?
Okay, wait. So, yeah, I mean, they would just kind of roast me about it. They're like, "This guy, you want to date this guy?" You know, I didn't really date. I didn't really date till later on. I mean, in high school, I had maybe 3 boyfriends,
That's a lot of boyfriends.
but it was like a week.
Yeah.
Or like a month.
I mean, high school
And
stuff.
then, yeah, and it was just like, so I remember the first guy I introduced, my brothers were like, really? Like, they were just roasting me. And that didn't last. And then I remember this other guy, same thing. Really? That guy roast me. And then the last like real boyfriend I had in high school, he was really cool. And they actually liked him. They're like, yeah, he's nice. Like, they saw that him and I were really compatible in the things that we liked. Like, we both loved hip hop. We both loved dancing. Like, that boyfriend and I, we'd do like little dance battle moves or like do
What? Like, you guys would battle each other?
Do you remember shuffling cruise?
Yeah, of course.
So him and I would do like little couple shuffling moves so we could pull out during a shuffling battle.
So you guys are performing this stuff.
So they liked him, but yeah, they've never been very like, oh, you better be nice to my sister, or you know, like they never kind of shun people like that, or like made them feel like I better, you know, treat her right or whatever. I do remember when I was younger, I believe I was in elementary school, and this is one of those moments where I was like, wow, like my brothers love me, like they're gonna protect me, you know. So I was off in the hills with my little friends, and we were watching these older kids just like playing around, messing around, and they were like throwing things, and I think they didn't see us, and one of the things hit us. So then one of my friends threw something, and I think it hit one of them, and they were like, who's there? And we're like, oh shit, like this is out of a movie, like The Goonies or something. We're just running. I was like, oh my God, I've never been in a fight. Like, I've never in my life been in a fight. And I was like, oh, we're really gonna get a fight right now? Like, we ran, and they're like, I don't know what to do. What are we gonna do? I was like, let's go to my apartment. Like, let's go to my house. I think my brother's there. But at the same time, I didn't want to tell him anything, you know, because like, I had seen, you know, who they are and what they're capable of if somebody's in danger or whatever. And so, but I saw it firsthand for myself. So I went up there, and my brother was like, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing. He's like, why are you guys all sweaty? Like, what's wrong? And I was like, there was these people and they're chasing us and I think they want to fight us. And they're like, what? And he's like, stay right here. Don't go outside. And of course I go outside in the balcony. And I just watched them, and these kids, they're older kids. I think they were in high school, maybe middle school. I don't know. We were in elementary school. They come and they're like yelling for us, and my brother's like, hey, are you yelling at my sister? Oh, they threw something at us. And he's like, I don't care. You don't throw anything at my sister. You don't try to fight my sister. Like, I was like, oh my God, like my brother's defending me, you know? And yeah, this guy, he was like being, you know, trying to talk back to my brother pushed him like hard into the bushes, and the other guy was like, that's, you know, that's my sibling, like don't do that. And he's like, I don't care, don't mess with my little sister, she's a little girl. And they like run off, but then they come back with their dad. Oh,
it becomes a family affair at this
it's point. A family thing. My mom's not there, my mom's working, right? And my brother was like, oh fuck, like I got my brother in trouble, like there's a dad involved now, like so many things in my mind were, you know, just spiraling. And my brother's like, dude, you're fine. Like, so he goes out there and the dad is yelling at my brother, and my brother's like, I don't give a, you don't mess with my sister. I don't care if you're here, sir. Like, they should never be messing with little kids, even if they're just little kids. And maybe they did hit him with something, but like, they're little kids. Like, don't threaten my little sister, you know, don't threaten my little sister. But the dad was trying to step up to my brother, and he was like, my brother, oh, he just kind of just tell him to fuck off. And I just, in that moment, I was like, wow, like that was really cool that my brother defended me. Yeah. So that was like one of the very early moments in my life that I remember of a specific situation that someone was trying to beat us up. Yeah. And my brother was like, hell no. So yeah, they definitely have defended me in that way.
See, I'm the oldest child. I'm the older brother to my sister, and I don't think I've ever done that for her. But I'm also like the way I live life is I allow people to make their own mistakes and to defend themselves. So whenever my sister does something, I'm just like, okay, she'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, she'll get back on her own 2 feet and
Yeah.
she'll figure it out. You know,
Yeah.
but as of lately, you know, I think very similar in your case, my sister, I've always considered like very masculine. She could take care of herself. You know, she don't need me. Like, it's fine. She'll handle it. I feel bad for the guy. But I'm starting to realize that there's also a feminine side to her that I've never catered to, you know, and I've seen her cry in the past couple of years, and I've seen her get way more emotional than she's ever been, you know, and it was a side of her that I never kind of allowed in front of me because I would never ask her. You know, I just figured she got it. She's fine. And now I'm more cognizant of it, so I try to talk to her. You know, be like, "Oh, you're right. Like, how's everything? You know, how's your relationship? You know, how are you dealing with the breakup? You know, maybe you can give her advice from time to time. You know, and I'm a guy where I don't really give unsolicited advice except for on this podcast. But so for me, it was very foreign.
Yeah.
So when I was like, okay, I think I have to be this figure in her life now, like that older brother figure that she didn't really have as much, you know?
Yeah.
So it's definitely opened me up to having more meaningful conversations with her. And even though I get kind of nervous as to what might come out of her mouth as far as what she's dealing with, because I don't know if I'll feel like I haven't defended her enough or I haven't protected her enough, but the conversations are starting to come out more often now.
Yeah, that's really good. And I'm glad that you're having that with your sister. Being a little sister myself, and now having that with my older brothers, I think it's really sweet. Although, you know, I explained that little, like when I was little and he did that. I'm a very like loving person, and my brothers have always shown me love, but we've never been very outright like, oh, I love you, you know, or like very emotional. Growing up, they weren't very like words of affirmation type, right? But now that I am getting older and they're getting older, those things are coming out, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's really nice to be able to call my brothers and be like, cry, you know, and be like, I need some advice and I need some help. And yeah, they'll give me like tough love and be like, stop being so nice. But then it does get deeper than that, and it's gotten like that more recently. And I think it's just a part of growing up, you know. And one of my older twin brothers, he got married, and you know, amazing wife. I absolutely love her, and they're gonna have a kid. And then my other twin brother, him and his girlfriend are gonna have a kid too. And so that emotional side of them, I see it more. And yeah, I'm really excited for them because they have always been great brothers, and they're being great brothers to me now.
All right, let's continue the sibling talk because I think this
it.
is very interesting to hear how you guys function. And you know, I feel a little bit of guilt in my absence as a brother. You know, I'm still kind of absent as a brother because I have two half brothers who are a lot younger. They're in their college age now, and it's kind of hard for me to kind of relate in some ways. And I feel like sometimes it's not what is said, but who is saying it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they need to hear it more from their friends and their peers and then their brother who could also be like their uncle, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, going into that, I have, my younger sister, she's a chronic dater, right? She's been in a lot of relationships and she falls really hard, you know? She feels a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes that abundance of emotions, I don't know how to kind of have a conversation with her when that's happening, you know? I remember because of my lack of communication or communication skills, I remember she was going through a tough time, and all I could do was like I gave her a hug. I just told her I loved her. I think that was like the first time I've told her that individually in maybe a decade, maybe even longer. You know, prior I would tell my family that, and within the past 4 years I've been doing that more. But as a whole, you know, I love you guys.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sometimes it needs to be I love you. You know, as strange as that is, I think those three words to a specific individual like matters more when they need it the most.
Absolutely. Again, it's really sweet that you were able to do that, you know. And I think everything is with time, you know, because you can't force and I love you, even if it's to a family member. And I've had to learn that, you know, because there's been relationships and not, I'll come back to my brothers, but there's been like relationships with some family members that I absolutely love. And I've been like, I love you. And they're like, you know, and I'm just like, damn, you know, but I've learned you can't force that. But just going back to what you were saying about you being able to say that to a specific person, this one being your sister and someone that you love, and you can finally say it. I think it is really important, and I do understand you because again, like, growing up with my brothers, yeah, I knew they cared for me, and I knew they'll protect me, and I knew they'd love me, but again, we wouldn't just say it like, oh, I love you. Like, it felt weird. I don't know if you understand. Like, even during Christmas, like, I had a stepdad. He's still alive, but he, you know, he's gone. He's out. Yeah, out the picture. But I remember being able to be like, I love you, and then giving a hug. Like, that felt weird. Like, I don't know. I can easily express myself, but I also need to know that not everybody can. So I've allowed time for that, and my brothers can say that. I think my older brothers, it's been a lot easier for them to say it than my middle brother, and I just like with time and now he says it like, oh, I love you, like, have a good day, like, you know, and that feels so good. At first it was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if it's like a cognitive dissonance, you know, but now I'm like, cool, like, you know, he does love me.
Yeah. Myself specifically, I didn't really grow up with that, right? Not too many I love yous pretty much at all, really. Whether it's between my parents, like, again, they would say it as a group, you know, like, we love you guys. But it was never like an individual thing. And I think that becomes foreign to you after a while because you never hear it, you know, and there's like this wall that builds up. And I can speak from my own experience where it almost makes you react negatively to see other people receive that. And what I mean is, you know, I've been around families, like my family's not super close. Like we'll do traditions like Christmas or Thanksgiving, but even then it's like the bare minimum. Like we eat stuff that we buy. 15 minutes after eating, we're back in our own rooms and not really talking, right? So we don't really know how to express that, and being together sometimes even feels weird, you know. But as you get older, you understand that it doesn't need to be that way anymore. And you know, the reason why I bring this up is because when I've been around families who seem so happy and so close and so loving, I can remember when I was younger, I felt very negatively around it. I was like, oh, that's cheesy. That's corny.
I feel you.
You know, like, oh, you guys love each other so much. So great. Good for you. You guys get love, you know, and I don't. But, you know, this is only hindsight that I'm thinking about this. Like, why did I react so negatively towards this group of people who are receiving love in the way that I want it?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what was missing was like in the way that I wanted it, that I did not receive it. You know? So, to your point, you know, breaking down those walls by you being the one to, you know, start it off is really important because guys who are not used to it, like they don't know how to react. You know, it is foreign, and sometimes even if they feel it, the words don't come out. Right. Because I think with anything, if you don't practice it, you lose it. You know? So Yeah, it's so interesting to me to hear that even in your case, as close as you guys are, like
Yeah.
the expression isn't quite there as far as like the vocabulary,
Yeah.
but it's there in terms of the action,
Yeah, action
right?
for sure. Yeah, definitely. I think I grew up in a household where the actions were a lot louder than the words of like, "Oh, I love you," you know. So it was very interesting, and I think that growing up that way also made me to be more like I tell my friends like I love you like every time I leave I'm like bye like I and I say I love you because I love you, you know. Sometimes people say like love you, you know, and that's fine,
I agree.
but I obviously I've learned to mold and be like okay maybe they don't feel comfortable hearing I, so I just say love you, like love you, you know. But what I want to scream with my chest is like I love you, like I love you, and I love saying that, you know, and I mean it. It's not just like I don't just throw it out there. Like when I say it, I mean it, you know, and I think that could be overpowering for.
You know what's crazy about that is as far as the words being used, it's not too different, but yet the impact is way different. I've come to learn that, you know, even when I first started expressing like how much I love my friends, like it went from like love ya or love you guys,
Yeah,
and you know, now I'm starting to learn how to say like I love you, you
yeah,
know, and that's strange because
yeah.
when you're not used to saying it and the person's not used to hearing it, it gets really awkward real
You're
quick.
like okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think for me now, I'm very good at nurturing relationships a lot quicker. Meaning, I could have met you a year from now or a year ago, and I could love you. I could show you love. You know,
Yeah,
whereas before it was like, yeah, I love my boys. We've been boys for like 20, 30 years, and
yeah,
that's the reason why we love each other because this
yeah.
time that we spent together, that's why, because we've had this history. But I've
Right.
come to understand like, no, it doesn't need to be about history. You know, I had a friend yesterday. I went out to his birthday. You know, he was very grateful that I went to his birthday. I've known him for maybe a year and a half, you know. And I was like, yo, let me get you a picture, you know. And when I went to go get a picture, I remembered like not say like love ya. I was like, I love you, man. You know, and I think that was the first time I ever told him that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he said anything. And also, I don't think I said it in the right way because I said it as I was going through the door and he was behind me. You
Uh-huh.
know, I was like, love you, man. You know, not quite confronting him, not
Uh-huh.
saying it face to face, you know?
Uh-huh.
So I wonder if he even really heard me, but his demeanor was a little different after, you know? He was definitely way grateful. So
Yeah.
maybe it could be because of that, or
Yeah.
maybe because he's just happy that we're there for his birthday. But
Yeah.
I think, you know, the way you approach things, like I think the world needs more love, you know? And funny enough, what's a phrase that we grow up hearing a lot, especially about actions and words? That actions speak
Speak
louder
louder
than
than words.
words,
Yeah.
right? But weirdly enough, there is a place and time for words also. You know,
Yes.
just because you could show through your actions doesn't mean you should remove the words,
Right.
right? And I'm
Yeah.
coming to understand that, weirdly
Yeah.
enough, you know. And one of the things that have taught me that is like my parents, like my dad now kind of will say like I love you, right? Like in the
Yeah.
past year or two. Prior never ever said it. But if I were to really look at his actions, like does this man love me? He does everything for me. You know, he fled a country for me, you know, came here by boat,
Yeah.
worked his ass off, you know, nothing in return. And like this is where I look at it and I feel so ungrateful for the way I've viewed him for so long, you know? Like I knew he loved me, but I just didn't understand the extent. And I look at him now and I feel such like guilt, right? Because I look at him and I think, so my dad's a construction worker. He's been working since he was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
He's still in construction. He's still hands-on. He owns his own company, but he's still hands-on. He's 60 something years old now.
Wow.
You can't do that forever, right?
No.
Like you physically, your body just breaks down. And this guy goes day in, day out, just working out in the sun, you know, hard construction, getting injured.
Wow.
He has next to no nice things. And the thing that gets me is sometimes he doesn't even have nice kids. And that messes with my head sometimes. Because I'm like, this guy, I look at him, I'm like, is he ever going to see happiness? You know, because maybe this is a shame of a Asian kid speaking, but we didn't become the doctors that he wanted. We didn't become the engineers. We didn't become the lawyers. All these things that he left his country for,
Yeah.
that we were never able to achieve. And to me, I look at him like, did we fail him?
Uh-huh.
And also at the same time, like, is he gonna find happiness if what he believes and what he wants for his kids is this, and they don't live up to that expectation? So now, it's funny because I think about it, it's like me being the first child. That was his first time being a dad.
Yeah.
He didn't know any better, and you come from a country where it's like there's toxic masculinity too, to where they don't tell you that they love you, and that's normal. But now, I being an adult, I'm like, oh, maybe he did know better. Like maybe he did, like, for sure he did the best that he possibly could. But now, like, that I'm an adult, let me kind of contribute to the conversation. What might be better, right?
Yeah.
Let me give you my 2 cents. So I'll tell him that I love him. I'll do it to a way where it's like, it's funny because innately I think I know that he always wanted to say it back, but he wouldn't. So what I would do is I would pressure him to say it.
I feel you.
Yeah, so I'll go to him like, I love you, Dad. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, no, I love you. And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, no, I love you. I love you. And then he's like, I love you. So he already knew what I was aiming for. He's just really hard to get out of him, And it's funny that it's such a big deal to us guys, and but that is this pivot that I've been seeing. Guys are becoming more comfortable with it, right?
Yeah.
Where like your brothers are having kids.
Yeah.
They're probably gonna be a lot softer
Oh.
and probably be able to tell them that, they love them.
I think so. And I understand you when it comes to the whole like telling your dad like I love you. I may not know exactly, right? Because you have your own life and your own relationship. But with my dad, like my mom and my dad, they didn't get married. They separated. We came to the U.S. and my dad stayed, and then he came for us. But even in that, they weren't together. I had a stepdad. And I have a dad. But even him doing that, like coming for us, was an act of love, and more so now than before, I've had a better relationship with my dad. Not saying that I didn't have a good relationship, but it definitely had its struggles, and I definitely had my own perception of my father and things and all that. But now, like I've always loved my dad, and one of my favorite things to do with my dad is dance. Like we dance cumbias, and whenever we're at a family party, him and I, we're dancing the night away, or I'll meet him, for cumbias or bachata for sure, or we'll just go dance. Yeah. Right, that's our thing. But I always notice that when I call my dad or I am saying bye to him, like I give him a big hug or I kiss him on the cheek, and I'm like, I love you, Dad. And he's like, and I'm like, I love you, Dad. He's like, I love you too. And I think about it, and I think like, okay, it's not that he doesn't love me, it's just he grew up differently, and he had a hard childhood, like a really hard one. So I think that one of the things that kind of scares me sometimes to love somebody so much is that you're going to lose them one day, So maybe he's just lost a lot in his life that he's afraid to say like, I love you, or get closer to somebody. And I definitely understand that, and I think maybe a lot of immigrant parents, and me, myself being an immigrant, like I know that your life can change at any moment and you won't ever see some people ever again. So it's kind of hard to get really close to somebody, and it could be scary.
Thank you for sharing that, because I noticed that a lot about immigrant families in general. You could lose everything, and that attachment is painful, but I think if there's anything the newer generation is learning is that like life is full of those moments. There is a couple things guaranteed in life. They say, what is it? There's taxes,
And death.
and also pain.
Pain, yes.
And I think that goes with anything. And if we were able to like reframe that mindset into like, how lucky are we to love someone so much that we're scared of losing
Oh
them,
my gosh, yeah.
is really the essence of life in general, right? If
Yeah.
there was nothing to strive for, nothing you're ambitious about, nothing that you fall in love with, whether it's a hobby, whether it's an art form, whether it's a person,
Yeah.
like, what is the purpose of living life,
Yeah.
So to me, I think life is about risks. You have to take those risks, right? And the
Yeah.
biggest risk is if you don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
So to me, I do all these things now because I don't want to imagine a life where my dad never felt the love that I want to give him. So I'm not going to take that chance. And I'm going to let him know. And I'm not perfect at it because I think, we have busy lives and sometimes we need a reminder. And I think that's one thing that I've come to understand too, is that as human beings, because we're imperfect, we're not machines.
No, we're not.
That while we might learn things, we need reminders
100%.
frequently.
100%.
Like I had to remind myself recently that, not to be frustrated about things that are outside of my control. And that's something I've known since I was a kid. But I lost sight of that along the way, and the same thing. It's like you have a close relationship with someone, right? And something along the way happens and you lose sight of that. But it doesn't mean you can't come back to it if it's meant for you.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. And reminders are really important, but they're also really hard.
Yeah, they are.
Because it's so easy to fall back onto those things that you try to unlearn, or it's easy to just kind of like brush things off, and be like, oh, that doesn't matter, but it really does.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is that's like a mechanism to protect us, right? Where we want to write off as like, no, it's not that big of a deal. But I think if we continue to do that, and this is just my own personal opinion, the more inauthentic we are about how we truthfully feel, the more people are going to give us exactly that same inauthenticity, right? It's not because they're trying to be inauthentic, but if you tell them that you don't care, then they're gonna believe that you don't care. And this goes for everything, not just like relationships with your parents or your siblings, but relationships with your loved ones. You know what I mean? Like your loved ones isn't just like your romantic relationships
romantic
also,
relationships.
Because I know you're going into any of my romantic relationships, like earlier on when I was younger, I used to want to be the pick-me boyfriend, like the cool boyfriend. Like, oh yeah, I don't get jealous.
Oh.
What do you mean? Like, oh, you want to hang out with your coworker? That's cool. I don't care. And like that was denying myself of like an emotion that I actually felt at the time, know? And in turns, what would happen was like they would hang out with those people. They would put themselves in those situations because I told them I did not care.
Yeah.
But because I saw me caring too much, me being jealous as a weakness, I was like, I'll just repress this feeling and act like it doesn't exist within my spectrum of emotions.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Talking about those things in relationships, like I know it's one thing with family, but in a romantic relationship, it's like, well, this is what you really gotta unpack and like really gotta unlearn. I've been there, for me, I am different now when it comes to relationships, romantic relationships. But when I first started, I was so afraid to fall in love with someone because I didn't believe in the whole marriage thing because I didn't grow up with that. So I was like, I wanted that, but I didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up with seeing that example. Yeah. So, I was like, I don't want to get married. I'm going to be single. Like, I want to have kids, but like, I know I can do it on my own. But I don't want that. No, I want to get married. I want to have kids. And so what I used to think before used to get me in like situations where there were people who wanted to express their whole love to me, and I just like put a wall, and I'd be like, no, like this isn't like, no, like let's spend more time like just seeing each other. Like they wanted to be my boyfriend, but I was like, no, like you're just my friend right now. You're just my friend. But I grew up kind of that way. I think my dad has had a lot of friends, right?
Gotcha.
You know, and so I was like, it was kind of like a normal thing to be like, oh, this is my friend, this is my friend, this is my friend for like months. And then finally I let them in, and we had like a really good relationship for almost 4 years. And that relationship specifically is what changed my mind about marriage. Like, it's like I did want to get married because I saw they had a family with mom and dad, and they grew up with mom and dad, and I saw who they turned out to be in the support system, and I was like, I want this. Like, this is what I want. We broke up, you know, like, and that shit hurt.
You changed my mind. This is what I get.
It hurted, you know. But even through that, even through the whole relationship, like, they would be like, I want to get married with you. Like, let's get married. Like, fuck it, let's go to Vegas and get married. Damn. And I'd be like, I want that, but I can't right now, you know, like, and we were also so young, you know. So I learned a lot from that relationship. And I guess tying it back to what you were saying about like, they would be like, oh, are you not jealous? You're like, no, it's fine. I think not for myself, because I'm not a very jealous person in some aspects. I think I'm learning that I can get jealous, but I'm the type of person to just talk it out. You know, like my last relationship that ended recently, it was a good one. It was a good relationship, and I learned a lot from them. They taught me to be a little bit more. I've always wanted somebody to talk it out with, and they did that.
They gave that to you.
They gave that to me and then some. They made me see things that I was like, maybe I am wrong. You know, like I learned that I had flaws as well. You know, not saying that I went about being like, I'm not wrong ever, but it's like, no, they like really made me see it, and it took me back. Instead of being like, no, and like protecting myself from getting hurt, to like thinking about me being wrong, to being like, oh yeah, I messed up and I'm sorry, and let's talk about it.
They taught you to put your ego aside.
Put my ego aside and be forthright and be honest about what my actual intention was, you know. And that made me be my authentic 100% self.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that makes me curious, and I'm gonna have to ask you because it sounds like it was a great relationship.
Yeah.
It sounds like I think the best relationships show you something new about yourself that you never understood before. Yeah. So how did you deal with that now that you're not in that relationship?
It was hard. It was really hard. Having my brothers there was cool. It was kind of nerve-wracking to tell them like, hey, we broke up, and I didn't know what they were going to say because he was the first boyfriend to get like really close to the family, and they were just like, it's okay. You'll be okay. There's going to be somebody else who, you know will be like 100% the right guy, and they were like, we want somebody for you that will match the same energy that you give. Not saying that this last person didn't, but I now looking at it, I'm like, there are some things that were not in that person that I want now in somebody else, Yeah. But it was hard at first. It was really hard. It was like, crap, like that's my best friend, like that's really how the relationship was. It was like, it was my best friend, and we talked about everything. He taught me a lot, but obviously I've moved on, I think. And I've taken the positives from that relationship and applied it to myself, and I'm hoping that I can be a better version for whoever's next. Yeah. But haven't really been dating. Like it's kind of hard out here. It's kind of
hard out here in these streets.
No, it really is. It's like I'm not an app girl. I cannot do the apps. Yeah. I went on one date.
And how was that?
And it was cool.
What was the initial line, like initial conversation?
I don't remember.
Really?
I don't remember. But wait, I skimmed over the whole fact as to why I really am not an app girl. Okay. Everybody's just like, Ooh, like it feels gross. It's very grimy. Like
What
everybody,
app are you on? No, just kidding.
dude. I tried.
Feet Finder. No, just kidding.
No, I know what you're on. I'm just kidding. No, I tried Tinder.
Okay.
I tried Hinge, and I tried Bumble. No, 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 no. I think I deleted them within like an hour span. Yeah, I mean like 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then an hour, and then I was like, I tried it again. I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. Maybe I was scared because I was like, maybe I haven't moved on yet, you know.
Yeah.
But I tried it, and I talked to this one guy. I don't even remember his name, but we planned this date. I got dressed up. It was after a show, so even then I was like, usually after a show I like to stay and like talk, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna go on a date. I get there, I got stood up.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's why it was terrible. He
The
wasn't even there.
First time I got stood up, so then I was like, okay, I'm never doing that again. And then I got sick and I got bored, and I was like, okay, let me hop on Tinder, whatever, let's see. And so I went on Tinder, and this person, we ended up going on a date. But I just feel like people are not real with their intentions.
So for me, like I've never really used the app to date. Like I've downloaded to prove that I was over my ex because my buddy was like, "You're not over her. Download Tinder." I was like, "Watch." Download it. An hour later, delete it. But anyways, my theory is that with these apps, it almost like expedites what dating's supposed to be because you go into like, this is why I like. And you tell me what you are before we even have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think there is like a level of like uncertainty and like mysteriousness that you're supposed to go through when you meet someone. Like in person, that happens a lot, right? Where it's like, I don't know if we're even gonna get along, but like, oh shit, something's there.
Yeah.
You know, versus like, I'm gonna write this person off because they are not, you know, over 6 feet. Shit like that.
Yeah, that's so.
And it just pretty much skips this process that I feel like gets people to be closer to each other in general, you know, and you go into it having these expectations because this is what they tell you, right? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't click, that level of uncertainty that, you know, you're supposed to have already goes away completely because already you didn't check off the boxes that you told me. And now that we're in person, it's not exactly what you told me. So therefore, fuck it, right? Like, this is over. This is done.
Yeah. I would say another reason why I just like, I really am never going to download any of those or even, I mean, I'm glad that I had a bad experience, high key. I mean, I know some people that have had great experiences and bless them. I'm happy for them. But another thing, I was just like, do people really talk to women like that or women talk to men like that right off the bat?
Like what? Can you...
Like, you know, they're fucking dirty. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. Like, I remember this one. No, actually, the guy I went on a date with, he was the only one that was not gross right away. You know,
right away.
Right away. Later on, they were gross, and I was like,
the key word.
No, right, so they weren't gross, and we actually were having a real conversation. You know, and I don't have a type. I like somebody who I can have a conversation with and who's funny and it just make me laugh and who are interesting, you know? And I was like, oh, fuck it. I'll go on a date with him. Like, that's cool. Let's do it. But yeah, that didn't work out. And all the other guys were just like, oh, you're close by. You want to watch a movie and da da da, you know? Or like, they were in for like a convention. I was like, my ass was naive self was like, oh, what are you doing? Like trying to just have a conversation because that's what I thought it was for. But they're like, oh, you want to fuck? And I'm like, bro, like, would you really talk to me like this in person? I would have slapped you, or at least would have been like, bro, what the fuck? You know? I just feel like for both men and women on the app, I'm like, you're not going to talk to somebody like that in person. You're not going to be like, oh, nice tits, or oh, fucking fat ass, or you're not going to be just overly sexual right off the bat. Like, or that's just disrespectful, and I really felt very disrespected in all that, and I was like, this isn't for me.
I can see that. I'm just wondering what, because I'm super into like the psychology of things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder what causes guys to do that. And then the reason why I say guys is because like they're the only ones that I could affiliate with. Like I might have an idea. Because like same thing with like prior to Tinder and stuff. Like I've seen guys catcall girls. And I'm just like, does that ever work? You know what I mean? Like, does that ever work? Or one of my friends would be like, yeah, this dude sent me a dick pic. I'm like, does that ever work? Yeah, I'm curious as to what compels you to do that. You know, I've never ever had that impulse where I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to send her a dick pic.
And then she's gonna come over.
Yeah, exactly. She's gonna want to come back, and she's gonna want to see what's down there. Like, I've never ever thought that. Yeah, it's really strange.
For me, I think it's so weird. I really do. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm an in-person, type of girl, and like, if we're vibing, maybe we could flirt and allude to some stuff, but just to right off the bat be like,
I think it's even weirder if it works, right? That's my question of the day is like, does that shit work?
Question of the day.
Yeah.
Does that shit work?
Does that shit work? Because
apparently, because I did ask them.
Oh, you did?
I did. Yeah. I'm gonna be like, first of all, if you talking to me like this, I can ask you anything, right? So I said to several guys, like, does that actually work on women? And they were like, yeah, some of them are down. I'm like, that's crazy. But that's their thing.
Yeah.
If they want to do that, that's fine. No shame to them. But for me, it wasn't for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
Me, I'm like, do your thing, girl. Do your thing. But that's not my thing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's very different for sure. And then like similar to you, I haven't dated in like a long ass time. I just like have no interest right now. It's just my life is kind of like a mess. But it's just funny because like I hear it from a lot of people, and I'm like, God damn, is it really tough out there? Like everyone's saying. Because I've never I've had a couple of relationships, but they were all organic. Like we became friends and. Like we ended up like hanging out a lot, and it developed into a relationship. It was almost like we didn't even know that was happening while it was happening. Like everyone else would be like, "Oh, do you like her?" I'm like, "Whoa, what do you mean?" And then down the line, like, "See, I fucking told you, I knew you did." Yeah, because it was so organic, it was so seamless, And now going back into it, and I have like my own thoughts as to how things are now, which is different in my age group, right? So I'm 37. And the reason why I bring this up, I'm talking about a buddy of mine. Hopefully he doesn't watch this episode, but anyways, I'm talking about it. So he's my age, and he went to Vietnam. He went on a solo trip, and I asked him, I was like, how was it? He's Vietnamese too, so he's like, oh, it was great. I had a great time, but it was the loneliest trip I've ever been on. And I'm like, oh, have you never traveled solo?
By yourself?
He's like, I have. Like, so why do you feel like it was so lonely? He said, well, everywhere I went, it was just like very romantic, and there were just a bunch of couples everywhere, and I was the only person by myself. So I asked him, I was like, oh, now that you're back, do you still feel lonely? Because you're not surrounded by couples now.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm not lonely. I'm back to normal. And I looked at his face. I could tell it was the first time he ever had to question that.
Yeah.
And I looked at him. I was like, oh, really? He was like, oh, no, I'm still very lonely.
Oh, man.
And I was like, holy shit, you still feel it. And the reason why I speak about our age, right, was because I was like, I'm sure you didn't just become lonely. It didn't just happen right now. It's been something that's been happening over time. It's been stewing up, and now you finally could speak about it, right? It's like the teapot to where it gets so high, it's like the steam comes out. Like you can't hold it anymore. And then I asked him, I was like, oh, if that's the case, how come you haven't really put yourself out there? And he said, like dating our age, it's different. And I think this, I want to hear about your opinion. Yeah. But he was like, we're in our late 30s. Our options are like someone who's just got out of a marriage, probably like a divorcee, someone who probably has kids, or someone who's like never had experience for whatever reason. And that's why I stayed away from dating.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I've actually never thought about it like that, which feels so cynical because, that's actually a reality to a certain point where it's like your dating pool changes as you get
You
older.
get older. Yeah. I think that to go off of that, I mean, I know you're like, you haven't dated in a while. Me, on Tinder, none of the apps, no. But I do want to go on dates, and I feel like I haven't met somebody to. I feel like when you watch, the idea of dating is so like, I don't know how to explain it. Like as a woman, like you want to get asked to go on a date, but at the same time, I can ask somebody to go on a date, but then it's scary because you get like told maybe not. But I'm 27, so I'm at the age where I want to have kids, I want to get married, I want something real, but I'm also exploring being single at 27, and I don't know what that means, but I want to do it, and it's just kind of hard. I don't know why. Maybe I'm picky or with the sense of my energy. But it's just hard, like I think people my age, they don't want that yet, or I'm not sure. I don't know how to explain it, like I have gone on so that one date, right? And it went nowhere, and I knew it was going nowhere, which is okay. I've been on 2 dates recently, but I insinuated them, and like I put in the work and the energy, and I'm thinking to myself, like, is that how I want to go about it? I don't know.
You know what?
Because I want somebody who wants me,
Yeah. You know what though? I give you props for that. Like I've been in that receiving end where I've been asked out, and sometimes I'll say no because it's like I just don't want to waste your time. But at the same time, I'll be like, dude, but don't ever think that this is like to keep you away from doing what you're doing. Like I give you so much props, like bravery to do that, because it's not easy. It's not easy to put yourself out there, for one, but for two, like it's not easy to go for what you want. It's crazy how that works, right? Because it seems like intuitively that if that's what you want, you should easily go for it, right? You should have no hesitation. But I think going back to everything that we're talking about, the fear of that uncertainty, right? Like putting forth your energy to loving someone that might not be there later in life is frightening, right? It's paralyzing. But again, I think we're in 2024 now, right? I think this equality as far as like women approaching men is great. I think it should be happening more, and I think that it is kind of tilting the other way because a lot of guys. So I think the reason why, you mentioned that you want someone that wants you.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think because they don't approach you that they don't want you, right? Because you don't know what they're thinking. That's first and foremost.
Very true.
And I think the main thing now is that the position a lot of guys are in is a very frightening one. And what I mean by that is that, there's a lot of like terrible things happening to women. There's a lot of like, domestic violence. There's the R word, there's all these other things. And, guys, even if that's not even the case, guys could be deemed as creeps, for their approach. Maybe they're just socially awkward, things like that, or just not their type. And a lot of that runs in a guy's head, right?
Right.
And for them to now approach a woman and kind of not just be in fear of rejection, but be in fear of being labeled something that they're not.
Right.
Right. Like to be demonized is paralyzing too. So you have both sexes being at this point where it's like women are not used to doing that, right? Because they want to be wanted, and if a guy were to approach you, that shows that interest.
Right.
And on the flip side, guys are interested, but they also don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
So I think right now we're kind of at this weird stalemate.
So what do we do?
You know what? I think it goes back to like there's something I always say, right? Like if it makes you feel uncomfortable, a lot of times you probably should just do it, as long as your intentions are harmless and true. I think it's fine. You know, it goes back to like what you were saying earlier. You're like, oh, sometimes I'm too nice and people think that I'm flirting, so I tone it down. I'm like, no, you should not tone it down. You should be authentically who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's up to them. You can take it however the hell you want to take it. You know, I've had a situation where I remember this vividly because I was so taken back as to how she reacted to what I was doing. So I was out drinking in a group, and there was one girl that was part of this group that we were hanging out with, and she was by herself.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know why she was by herself, but like we were cheersing everyone, right? Like we got a round of shots, we were like, cheers. And she was by herself, no one cheers her, and I was like, okay, I don't want her to feel left out, so I'm gonna cheers her. Yeah. So I cheersed her. As soon as it hit her glass, I don't know if she even tilted my way, but it hit her glass, and she was like, ugh, ugh, and she wiped her glass off, and like she turned away from me, and you know, was not my intention at all.
Right.
And being younger, at first I was butthurt, right? I was like, what the fuck do you mean? I wasn't even into you. Like, why the fuck would you think that? You know, this ego tripping thing. And I look back at it, I'm like, because for a while I went and I tried to be less nice. You know, I was like, okay, well, she seems like she's alone. Well, she's going to be alone because I'm not going to do anything about that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be deemed a creep or whatever. But now I was like, well, you know, people are, if they misunderstand you, they're going to misunderstand you.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be. You can't control what they think.
You cannot control.
So you should just be you.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I definitely want to go into dating like being myself. That's why I took the leap and I asked that one guy out.
That's awesome. Props to you.
Thank you.
Of course.
But you know, like I guess I am that type of person to be like, you know, like if I see a guy, I'll be like, oh, you know, whether if it's just like a compliment or if we're talking, the vibes are chill, I'd be like, hey, you know, just kind of a little flirt. But I don't know. I think now that I'm 27, I definitely want to go things about it differently, and I just kind of I'm learning. Like I don't know what I want it to be. Really, I truly don't know. Like I know I want to be in a good, fun, healthy relationship with a future in it, but I also shouldn't box myself in, you know, into that. I had a conversation with the person that I went on a date with, and it was just like a cool conversation. And I was like, yeah, I don't really go on dates much. And he was like, why not? And I was like, I don't know, I don't really get asked. You know, he was like, well, why didn't you ask them? I was like, well, it's true, you know, but like I want somebody to ask me. He's like, well, you asked me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You know, you're so right. And then he was like, you know, like a date doesn't always, like going on dates doesn't always have to lead to a relationship. And I'm like, that's true. You know, I do know that. But I guess I'm just on my journey. Not saying that like whoever I go on a date with next, like, oh my God, you're the one.
Yeah,
like, no, it's not like that. You know, it's not like that. It's just, it's interesting learning about dating at this age, because prior to that I didn't really go on dates. Like it was just like a friend, you know, that became a boyfriend, or you know, or it was just like super young, like we were in college, and it didn't really feel as real as it feels now, if that makes any sense. Now that I'm older, yeah, life gets a little bit more real.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I'm like 10 years older than you, and I've never really dated, so if it makes you feel any better. And the only thing about me is like I've been in relationships, and that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't date, because my relationships are super long. You know, been together for 10 years, you know, 4 years, you know, all extended. And to me, I think one thing, you know, just to speak about your current situation, like I think we all want like a picture perfect relationship, right? But I think what it is like the initial start of it is always too paralyzing, because it might not be exactly how we want it to be. Yeah. But yet it could pan out to be exactly what we want. Yeah. So I think we should release a lot of the pressure for how the start is. Yeah. You know, whether it's through a dating app, whether you approach them first, whether you guys had no intentions of even dating. Like none of that really matters, right? I think in the very end, like what you get out of that, right? What comes into fruition is really what matters. Going back to what the guy was saying, like just because you go on a date doesn't mean it'll lead to anything. Yeah. And just because you start dating not in the most ideal way that you would like doesn't mean it won't lead to something.
Right.
You know? So
Yeah.
I think it's just all about keeping an open mind. And I know I'm saying
for
this
sure.
as a person who has not fucking dated, but I'm just talking about my observations, you know?
So with that being said, you said that you haven't dated much.
Mm-hmm.
Is this still something that you don't want to do? Like go on a date, even if it doesn't lead to anything? Like just like go on a date.
No, I've been on, I think, one date where I actually said yes, and it did not lead to anything. But I remember thinking to myself like, oh, she'd be a cool friend, and to me, that's what it was. I mean, we didn't really become friends after because
Right.
I went to go traveling, and I don't remember what happened exactly after that. But it was a cool experience, and I think we put too much weight on permanence.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think if we really just look at everything's very impermanent. Everything is fleeting.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a short time or a long time, everything goes away.
It does.
You know what I mean? I think just going back to like, you could have a great conversation with a stranger that you might never see again.
Yep.
You could have a great date where it could be the one and only date.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not really so much about the time frame. It's about the meaning.
Yeah.
Right? You could be in a relationship for like 50 years and be very unhappy.
That's true.
You know, I think people put too much weight on time.
That's very true. I have two questions. One question was, why did you say yes to that one person? And then another thing that you were saying, like something about permanence. Although you'll never see them again, that moment still sticks with you.
Oh, yeah.
And it does kind of like affect in a positive or a negative way.
I truthfully believe that. Like, everyone plays a role in your life.
Yeah.
Even if it's tiny or if it's huge, it doesn't matter. It's there. You know? Like, I think about people that have passed by that I've never seen again. Never even had a conversation with.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's just life.
That
you
is.
just experience it as you're going through it, and you could put whatever meaning you want to it, you know. But going back to your question, why did I say yes? I think I saw how much courage it took her to ask me. You know, like I'm not like a popular dude or anything like that, and you know, I remember her like tapping my shoulder, like, hey. I turned around, like, oh, what's up? I just want to say, like very nervously, I think you're really cute, and like, you know, I'd like you to go on a date if you don't mind. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. You know, like, that was like, I don't even know if there's anything there, and I don't want to presume that there's not gonna be, but at the very least, like, I kind of want to encourage her in one way that like what she did was fine, acceptable, and I think great, you know. So then we went on a coffee date. We talked for like 3-4 hours. Like, I saw her as like a friend.
That's
and it was cool, you know, and that was it.
That's dope.
And that was my one and only date, I think.
Really?
But, yeah.
Wow. And how long?
I mean, that was like I think at that point I had just gone out of a really long relationship, and that was like my probably like second year into being single, and that was like 2 years into it.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the only date that I've ever had, really. Yeah. I mean, you know, nowadays I think it's funny because I've always been a person to label things.
Right.
If you were to consent to the label, right? And what I mean by that is, like, I'll go out and hang out with one of my female friends, and my guy friends will, oh, damn, you want a date? I'm like, no. Until I ask her on a date, it is not a date.
Yeah.
And very similarly, I've noticed that that's how different my mindset was compared to my friends was, you know, there was a person that I dated for a while. Like, I think it was like 4 months. And like, oh, when's your girlfriend coming? And I would be very adamant, like, oh, it's not my girlfriend. It's just someone I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And until I ask her to be my girlfriend, then she will be my girlfriend if she accepts.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, no, that's weird, dude. Like, no, you guys have been talking for so long. She's your girlfriend. And, you know, to me, I think it needs to be consensual. Right?
Yeah.
To me, that's,
you have to. You definitely have to ask.
Yeah. I think, you know, assuming things in a relationship, no matter how new it is, if you guys are just seeing each other or if you guys have been together for fucking years or you guys are married, like, assuming is probably one of the worst things that you can do.
Yes.
Like,
and that's something I learned. No,
really?
For real. Yeah. That's something that I guess my last relationship, he really taught me, like, assuming something is like the killer of joy. Like, don't assume. Like, talk about it. Yeah. I think just short and sweet. I learned a lot.
Cool. You want to start with your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So you being someone who is artistic,
I disagree with that, but yeah.
right, and I don't, I don't, and I want to get more into it, but I think that this podcast is art, and the way that you speak is art. You're the way that you're able to pinpoint certain conversations. Like, for example, you know, I said something earlier and you kind of like pinpointed it and then made something more out of it. Like, that's art in itself. So I disagree with you. Disagree?
Okay,
You
yeah,
are an
all right.
artist. Also, your photography is amazing. I mean, it's my wallpaper. I'm
Oh,
not even joking.
damn.
Like, I really,
Shit.
when I reply to your stories and like new wallpaper just dropped, like, I mean it. I absolutely love it. And so I want to say is like, I know you disagree, but like, do you see yourself pushing more into that side of you with photography specifically,
Oh,
or anything else that you might have in mind in an artistic way? And tell me why you disagree with me.
Okay, so I'll start with why I disagree. Like, I believe that I'm a creator, right? I love creating things, right? This podcast, conversations, photographs, videos, whatever it is, right? I love creating, right? I think that's different than art per se, because the reason why I say that is because like typically I feel like art has meaning, you know? And to me, I create just for the feeling of creating and no absolute meaning at all. Like, it's not even abstract to me, you know? And I think that's why I disagree, because it doesn't come from a place where I'm trying to have a meaning behind, whether it's just for myself or anyone else.
Right.
You know, it's just simply just creating something for the beauty of it. That's pretty much it.
Right.
And I'm not talking about beauty as in like it has to be beautiful. There's some pictures I take that are completely ugly, but I find it beautiful in its own way, because I think life is that. It's true that there's the ugly side and the beautiful side to things. And that's just the way I interpret it.
Right.
But as far as me leaning more into it, probably not, because I used to do it professionally. And, you know, it's one of those conversations that you have with yourself if you have a hobby or anything that you're really passionate about, that you want to turn into a profession, right? And part of the conversation is like, will it suck the joy out of what you do? And I could say, honestly, it did. You know, and for me, this creation, this hobby is really just for me. And when I do post it, it's to inspire people to not do photography or any of the arts that I'm doing. Like, for me, I want to inspire people to go out there and see things, see the world. That's really my message, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess if I were to deem a meaning to,
It's like, I was gonna say that's your meaning.
yeah, well, I
maybe.
mean, when I do it, that's not the meaning. Right?
No,
when
right.
when I post it, that's the purpose of my post.
Right. But I mean, obviously, I'm gonna respect how you feel about
Of course.
it.
We can have a conversation,
Personally,
so, yeah.
I really think that you are an artist. You know, and you said that to be an artist, it has to have meaning, but you're just a creator. I'm like, I think that maybe your intention doesn't like necessarily right off the bat is that, but as someone who views it, I see meaning in that, and that's why I think that you are an artist in what you do.
Thank you.
You're not just a creator. But even if you're how you feel is just a creator, like, it's so much more than that, honestly.
Yeah. So, you know, to kind of elaborate a little bit more why it's really for me thing, and why I can no longer subjugate to other people's opinions as far as like a professional opinion, is because, you know, I love things that are in the arts, right? So I love dance and I love photography and I love a bunch of other things. But two things that I dabble in are dance and photography. And the reason why
dance?
Yeah.
Okay, you dance.
I mean, kind of. I dabble, you know,
dabble.
loosely, you know. But the reason why I bring it up in that way was because when I was going through hard times when I was younger, like the things that really cleared my mind were those two things. And I still use them as a tool for that till today. And, you know, I'll kind of describe my process to where you kind of see what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So if I'm going through like a tough time mentally, I'll go out and take photographs that I'll never post. It doesn't go anywhere but my hard drive. I might not even edit the photo.
Yeah.
But the process of doing it like alleviates so much stress and anxiety for me that I want it to be something that alleviates stress, not provokes it.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep it for myself. And once in a while when I feel inspired to share with people because maybe it can motivate them to go out and travel or to see the world differently, that's more of like the humanitarian side of me where I'm like, I think the world is full of beauty. You guys should check it out too.
Well, I definitely, I think it's really nice that you do that for yourself. Again, it's important to take care of yourself and do what you love and keep it for yourself, honestly.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But I really, truly appreciate when you do post pictures because I think that they're great. I really do. And you do invoke that sense in me of me wanting to go travel some more, you know, because like there's beautiful place. I mean, like I look at my phone all the time, you know, and I see this. I'm like, wow, like this is gorgeous. It makes me want to go there one day or like it brightens up my day. Or recently you posted the one with Yosemite. I think it was after a fire. And that literally took my breath away. I was like, that's like, to me, in that picture, it's just what life is about. It was like, it kind of just gave it like a circle of life in that one picture. So that's why I feel like, you know, you're an artist in that sense.
Well, thank you, Sammy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll agree to your definition. You know?
You don't have to.
Yeah, no.
I can see you that way.
Oh,
you
I'm
know?
also like not like a crazy semantics guy. Like what means something to you, if you use the word art or artist, that's fine.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing to me. Like the words don't really drive me. Like it doesn't have to be picture perfect to what I think what it means, right?
Yeah.
So especially a word as ambiguous as like artists.
Yeah.
Or art, you know? I think that's what it is. Like you can't really tie it down. So if that's what your definition is, then yeah, of course, 100% that you're right in your own opinion to that.
You're right. I'm just kidding.
No, you are.
No. But yeah, thank you for sharing those photos when you do. Like it definitely blesses my feed and it makes my day feel a lot brighter because I get to see cool places from somebody else's perspective. And although I was not there, it feels like in that moment in time, you know, I can see through your lens.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just goes back to who I am as a person. I am a avid sharer, and on this podcast, a avid oversharer. But
I feel you. I be oversharing all the time.
Yeah, and you know, anything that I've ever been interested in, I always love to share with my loved ones and my friends. Like if I see something cool, like I'll be one of the first people to share it.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's like a dance video, whether it's like a cool place to travel, new dish to try. Like to me, that's like I want to create that community around me where people understand they have options to do things. You know what I mean? Like I grew up in Santa Ana, right? And you know, a lot of my friends, you know, unfortunate to say, like from middle school to high school, they think there's only one way of living, and they've been stuck in that way for so long, you know. And for me, I'm like, no, you could do a lot more. You know, there's a lot more out there, and that's why I want to invoke in them is that feeling, you know. And it's unfortunate because I do have friends who they'll comment like, oh, that seems like it must be so nice. You know, it's like I wish I could be there, and in a way where, you know, it's not like I planned that trip. I'm planning that trip next year, but like in a way where it's like it can't be me.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you could do it.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, you know, because I'm like, I want it to be you too. It's not that far out of your reach. And I think what it is like I want people to understand like that limitation that they put on themselves. It's not really a real limitation.
Yeah, it's
you
right
know?
here.
So if they could see that there's more to life and more you could do, and this is the point of the conversations that we have. It's like people think maybe it's so hard to communicate with people. Maybe it's so hard to have friendships. And I'm like, no, it's really not. You just have to be open to it. And it sounds so cliche, right? Just have to be open to it. And how do you do that? You do that by starting.
Yeah.
You do that by allowing yourself to maybe be rejected, maybe
Yeah.
feel dumb or whatever. So, you know what I mean? That's part of the process.
Yeah.
Like
You gotta try.
you gotta try
You gotta
and leave the
try.
expectations behind.
Out the
Yeah.
window. Yeah, definitely. I think when I learned that, I have been able to live more freely, because to expect something again with assuming is kind of in the same boat. Uh, yeah, having an expectation and an assumption kills your joy and can even keep you from doing certain things that you want to do.
Of course, it's like we're trying to be the prophet of our own life. But if you really look at your life and you take a look at all the things that didn't pan out the way that you thought it would, I guarantee you it's more that than exactly how you pictured it, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to just allow things to just kind of flow the way things life gives you and like throws your way, like you would notice it more because you're not like narrow focused on like how it should be.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've come to understand is like however I thought my life should have been, like the millions of dollars, the cars, the expensive vacations that I thought I would have. It's crazy because I look at where I'm now and I don't have those things, but like I actually don't even want those things anymore because when you're younger, you don't realize how much of the outer world is the influence to what you desire and how little of that is truly what you desire. So I'm just learning that now, like listening to myself and kind of rattling off all the things that really don't align with me anymore. And another thing too is like we constantly change. Right? Who I am now is not who I was like a year ago, a day ago, a month ago. Like people change their mind about what they want to eat like every other second, things like that.
That's so true.
Like, that's all right.
That is very all right. And it's important to notice that. And honestly, I think if you don't change, that is like, you got to be able to be malleable. You got to be like water, like Bruce Lee.
I mean, if
said.
You don't change, you're probably dead, to be honest.
Yeah,
and even people who are dead are changing.
No, for real, like, I think, people say change is inevitable. Like, change is important. Change is necessary to evolve.
100%.
Like you said, like, you're not the same person from your, neither am I. I have learned so much from a year ago, who's the Samy was a year ago and even before that. And I'm so glad I've changed, and I'm very thankful for all of the painful moments I've had. I'm glad for all of the happy moments I've had, for all the moments where I felt like shit, like really sad, like you have to feel those moments. But you also have to look inward and be like, why am I in this situation? Why do I feel this way? I can't control what's around me, but I can control myself and how I feel and what I need to change. Yeah. So growth is important, but in order to have growth, you have to have change.
All right, Sam, I have 3 questions for you.
Okay, yes, let's do this.
All right, so first question is, what was one monumental event in your life that's changed everything for you?
Oh, for sure, moving to the United States. That was the most monumental moment in my life. And I've had this conversation with other friends before, and I think that it's a lot different now because, as crazy as it sounds, but I feel like I found my footing a lot more now with living here in the US. But for a long time, I always thought about the duality that I could have had. The one meaning that ever since I moved to the US, I've always thought about, okay, this is my life now, but what would it have been like? And there were moments that actually every single day for a long time, a long time since I was little, that I thought about what I could have been living in Mexico. And so that was huge and monumental for the trajectory of my life. But I'm happy to say that although I do have those moments of like, I wonder what, it is not like how it used to be, it's not as bittersweet. It's just more of like, okay, well, there's change, So yeah, those are one of the biggest, most monumental moments in my life.
My second question is, what makes you uniquely you? What makes Samy Samy?
I think that I try to be myself with everybody, and I'm a very loving person, and you'll know if I love you because I'm not afraid to say it. I think that's what makes me uniquely me. I'll be kind to a stranger. Like, I'll try my best to help them out, with anything. I feel like a lot of people do that, but I think for myself, like, I'm not afraid any longer to be able to say I love you to someone with like my whole chest.
All right, and for my last question, how would you want to be remembered?
Remembered?
Mm-hmm.
If I were to, well, when I die, not if I were to, but how would I like to be remembered? I think someone who tried her best for her family, tried her best for her community, and try to really, just keep pushing and being a loving person, honestly, and a kind person. I feel like going back to the monumental moment, that little girl was a very loving and kind person, and I think that's what makes the world go round. So that's what I like to be remembered as, someone who's loving and kind and tried her best.
All right. Well, I want to say a special thank you, Samy, for coming on the pod, for sharing your story and elaborating on what it's like to be the youngest out of 4 siblings and being the only girl of the family.
Yeah.
And I hope that you get everything that you want, because you do contribute so much to the community in what you do, but also, sharing your story like this on the internet for other people.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Of course. No, I'm happy to come out here, and thank you for having me. You guys can follow me on my personal page. I'm an artist. We didn't really talk about that much, but that's okay. You can follow me at Samy Love. That's SAMY_LOVE_. I have music on the way. I have shows on the way. Another thing that I'm doing with my girlfriends, we have something called the Girls Room. We have a costume party at the Yost in the Paradise Room, October 19th, Pomp Princess Night. And we just started this. It's called the Girls Room. You guys can follow it, GRRLS Room. I'll double check. I'll give it to you. Yeah, but we just hope to create more events, not just nightlife events, but like events where they're outdoors and just stuff like that. And I'm really excited about that. Yeah. I also host the Cool Lab Project, so you guys can check me out at the Cool Lab Project. We have an amazing team, and we're all about keeping live music alive and having a place where artists can come and just, perform their music and have a good time. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And I want to say a special thanks to the audience for watching all the way through. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below what you guys want us to talk about next time. And remember,
live fast, eat ass.